Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Deborah Eckerling, author of Your Goal Guide and founder of the Deb Method for Goal Setting Simplified. I'm a speaker and consultant with a specialty in goal strategy for event attendees, and I'm basically just all about helping people figure out what they want and how to get it. And every Sunday night, I lead the Goal Chat Twitter chat, and then on Monday, I bring in friends to dive deep into a topic. And then Thursday, this magically becomes an episode of the Deb Show podcast. So whether you're watching live or the replay or listening to us, we are glad you're here. And I am really excited about this week's topic. Yes, I say that every week, but I like my topics, you know. Through the month of May, the theme has been May Your Dreams Come True. And I thought it was really important to add that component of helping other people's dreams come true. So today we're talking about paying it forward. And I could not think of better people to dive deep into this topic with me. We have Joe Devon, who's, among other things, co-founder of GAAD, and I will let him explain that in a minute. And also Howard Brodwin from Sports and Social Change, and Tisha Janigian for She Is Hope LA. So I think the common thread is people who've seen things that need to be done and found a way to really amplify that to the universe, for lack of a better, really concise way of saying what you all have in common. So I'd love to let you all introduce yourselves, and let's start with you, Howard. Please share who you are, why you're here, and why you're so jazzed to talk about paying it forward.
Sure. Thanks, Deb. Great to be here. I appreciate the invite to do this, to be a repeat guest. So thank you. My name's Howard Brodwin. I have a consultancy called Sports and Social Change. Basically work at the intersection of sport and social impact. Do a lot of work around corporate partnerships, strategic planning, marketing, communications, and it's kind of coming from, different angles. Sometimes it can be working with a nonprofit organization to help them with their strategy and identify the right types of partners and how to present themselves to the partner. And then sometimes it can be working from the brand side and the company side to identify maybe a CSR strategy or a cause marketing campaign or a way to partner with a nonprofit organization to kind of bring something to life that's important to them as a brand. And I've been working in this space for almost 12 years and coming from a long career in the sports industry. And I'm also want to mention too, I have a startup that's in the civic technology space. So kind of tangential to what I'm doing in sport, but really in the social impact space, working around civic engagement for young people, trying to get kind of this upcoming first-time voter generation into being a good civic participant. And that's called CommonAlly. So happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Well, great to see you. And always, I feel like this is the only way I get to figure out what my friends are up to. It's like, come on the show, fill me in. But glad to have you back. Joe, it's been like eons.
Yes, since we've seen each other, it's been eons. Though you interviewed me last week, so I thank you for that. That was an amazing article that you put in the Jewish Journal. But to give some background, so I am co-founder of Global Accessibility Awareness Day, GAAD for short, chair of the GAAD Foundation, and CEO and co-founder of Diamond, which is an inclusive digital agency. So GAAD is this day that I created. I just wrote a little blog post proposing that designers and developers dedicate a day of awareness of building digital products that are accessible to people with disabilities. So imagine if you're using a mobile app or your computer or the internet and you cannot see because you're blind. How are you going to look at the mouse and point the mouse anywhere? What really happens is there's something called a screen reader that will read the page out to you. And so if we develop digital content correctly, it will work for people with disabilities. So for example, you should be able to access everything on an app through the keyboard only. And if you can't do it through the keyboard only, it's inaccessible. And those are the kind of things that really needed awareness. And I started that 11 years ago. And to my shock, it's gone viral to the point that we've got this year, I think it was like 220 million Twitter reach on the hashtag. We've had the Apple, Microsoft, Google CEOs. They usually like tweet it out. They introduce accessible technology on the day. There was a Google Doodle, just to give you a few things. Netflix created a category around it. It's just gone completely viral. And it was just a blog post. I don't know how it turned into this, but definitely hit a nerve. So that's about it for me.
Well, but it goes to show you never know when what you put out into the world explodes into whatever, and hopefully exploding into something good. And you and I have known, I should count, but it's got to be like 10 years-ish that we've known each other, maybe more. And I always knew this about you, but it was so much fun hearing the backstory. And it's just this one little thing that bothered you about the way businesses approach how they get their content out there, and that it's exploded into this is just amazing. So congrats and yay and good on you.
Yeah. Oh, I should mention it was last Thursday.
Yes, May 19th. But every year should be Global Accessibility Day. You should be aware all the time, not just on May 19th.
Yes.
Tisha, welcome back.
Thank you for having me again. And it's an honor to be here with everybody. I loved hearing their stories. You know, I think our best gifts and ideas for this world come out of necessity. So my name's Tisha Janigian. I am the founder and president of She Is Hope LA, which is a nonprofit founded to educate and empower single moms starting over in the workplace and provide affordable transitional housing and childcare. And we do this using a 3-pronged approach of education, jobs and job training, and we're working on affordable housing next. So I'm also the broker and owner of She Is Hope Realty, where a percentage of all of our real estate transactions go back to the nonprofit. But I also teach and mentor people about real estate. And it's also a fantastic job for single moms because it's flexible and has a high income earning potential, and their kids can work and volunteer at our boutique. So it's been wonderful giving back. It's all based on what I went through when I got divorced, which is why I'm saying, like, I'm listening to these things out of necessity or out of interest. Just thrilled to be able to give back to the community, and thank you for having me today.
And isn't that really what life is about? Because if it's just us in this vacuum, who cares? I mean, that sounds very cynical, which is the opposite of me. But having personal experiences and how you got into this space, I think that's how we create anything. But I feel like we need to start with the basic question, which is, what does it mean to pay it forward? Joe? Or rather, what does it mean to pay it forward to you? Is probably a better directed question.
Yeah, I mean, if you are lucky enough to be successful or be even just having a home, having food on your table, whatever it is that you're given, you know, it would be great to just pay that forward. I don't even want to like go further than that and say that you have to or anything like that. But this is what community is all about. Somebody's helping you at some point because you're going to need it, and you pay somebody else forward. I remember seeing that movie. I think it even got kind of panned a little bit, but I was very inspired by the movie. I thought it was fantastic. And one day I met this guy. I was at this in Hawaii at an Airbnb, and there was this crazy guy who on, where was it? I think it was on Friday. Yeah, it was like $5 Friday. He shakes my hand and puts $5 in my hands, and he says, "Today is $5 Friday, and do with it whatever you want." But it was obvious that the idea was to take that $5 and give it to charity, pay it forward one way or another. And I always thought that was a great approach to life, to be able to take what you got and then pay it forward. And he did that to everybody he met that day. It was great. I don't know if that answered your question, but hopefully.
You answered the question, and you gave us an anecdote. Best way to answer a question. I love that. What about you, Howard? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I think a lot of it is doing something that that no one can pay you back for, right? You're just doing it, and there's no one who's going to necessarily specifically reciprocate, whatever the action may be. So it could be anything. You've heard the line about paying for somebody at the drive-through, right? Paying for the person behind you in the drive-through. Like, they have no idea it's coming, and they can't do anything for you. You're long gone. You've driven well to LA, so maybe you're still stuck at the next traffic light. But it could be, I look at the world of that I work in sport. It could be doing trail maintenance, right, on a hiking trail or a mountain biking trail, that somebody goes out and does the maintenance work to clear the trail, and that way other people can go and enjoy it. It could be, around the fight around climate change, right? There are going to be people that will benefit from those who are doing the work right now to hopefully mitigate the damage. And it might be people who haven't been born yet, let alone, young kids who are growing up right now, right? So I think that's part of the effort of paying it forward, is just to do something that you believe in, that that is important to you, to build on what Joe said, that's part of the community, that's thinking about others, but you're doing it solely for the benefit of them, and there's nothing anybody's going to necessarily do for you in return for that.
And you added the phrase that I'm stuck on is something that's important to you, and it could be anything. I mean, the world is your oyster. It could just be smiling and being nice to people, because that's something that's important to you as well. So I like that. What about you, Tisha?
I think kindness is always important, but like Howard had said, I've had times where I've gone through the drive-through and someone will have paid for my meal or the drink or whatever, and I just think that is the coolest thing. Or even at the grocery store, and it's just nice to do little things and reciprocate. But to me, what really resonates is giving back through the nonprofit, because it's based on what I went through, and I know where our system fails us and why I want to fix our system. We're working on it. But everything that we're doing with the nonprofit is giving back. I mean, our education, the speakers are free. I will pretty much give whatever moms and their kids need from our boutique. And if we don't have it, we'll reach out to the community. And I can't wait to give them affordable housing so they can get back on their feet. I'm giving the tools I needed to succeed. And I know how scary and nerve-wracking it is and how messed up our system is. So it's being able to give them, the experiences that I've had and help them get to, I'd like to say I give them a hand up instead of a handout. So, and they in turn will help someone else. And that's really how this community has been growing so far. I mean, we're still new. You guys have been doing things a lot longer. We got our 501c3 the middle of 2019, and then COVID hit. So it was like all online, but but it's growing. We just opened our boutique and our office at the end of October, and it's been a meeting place, and we just kind of help and keep giving, and I love it. I think it's so important for people to pay it forward. It feels good, and it makes other people feel good, and that feeling continues, and we want that to be what our society and community is about.
I think you just answered my next question, which is, what are the benefits of paying it forward? Because I think that starts with feeling good. But did you want to add to that?
I think it's feeling good. It's also being an example. For me, it's important for my kids to see, listen, we're still on our journey and we're still growing, but they see how far we've come. And they see we're also working with a lot of other nonprofits, because I want to collaborate, see what's going on out there and how we can work together to help more people. But they get to see things that we help people. And it's good for everyone to appreciate what they have and how they can give back. No matter what your financial situation is, you can always give back. Like you said, it could be simple as a smile or just being there for someone, taking a call, checking in on someone. There's so many things you can do. But I think it's healthy for all of us to think about other people and pay it forward in one way or another daily.
It's healthy. It's good. It helps with the spirit, the body, the soul. So I'm with you on that one. What do you think, Joe? What do you think are the benefits to paying it forward?
So let me ask you, when you say benefits to the person paying it forward?
Well, I think to the receiver, it's you don't know, but I mean as the giver.
As the giver, okay.
Or both. I mean, answer both.
Okay. I mean, to the receiver, it's obviously like whatever you're giving them, you know, they might really appreciate it and hopefully pay it forward themselves. But in terms of the giver, you're actually asking like a really difficult philosophical question if you want to get to be
I know.
a pain like me thinking, you know, too deeply about these things. Maybe officially nothing, right? Maybe that's the point. There's no benefit except that you're doing something good. And what if you don't feel good doing something good, but it's still good? It's the right thing to do. So just being a little bit provocative, maybe nothing, right? But then again, I think for most people it does feel good, right? And that would probably be the answer. I like the way that Tisha responded to that. But part of me is like, well, what if it don't do the giver any good, but it's good for the community? Why don't we all just do that, and then as a community we'll all benefit from it at the end of it? Sorry, that's not probably what you're looking for, but
there is no right, there is no wrong. It's just a perspective. When you were talking, I kept thinking there was a Friends episode years ago. I think we're mostly, if not all, Generation Xers, so we probably get this reference. But Phoebe was determined to do a good deed that didn't benefit herself. And that included, oh, I just got stung by a bee because the bee looks cool in front of his bee friends. And then someone says, no, the bee died after they stung them. So you killed the bee.
That's a great one.
But I think what she ended up doing was giving money to PBS, who she wrote a letter to as a child, and they ignored her. And then she found the long lost letter. So I think the whole point is all good deeds have some benefit to the giver. But you're right, it's a much deeper conversation. We could probably do an hour just on that. Yeah. And on that note, Howard, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, well, I'll build on that. I think what Joe and Tisha said is spot on, and all right. I'm going to go into the controversial world of politics.
Ooh.
So, but I'm going to use it as it's been really interesting in working now in the civic engagement space, and we've done a lot of work as part of the bridging movement, which is a really fascinating kind of sector of grassroots organizations doing work to bridge the divide. And what you hear on a regular basis, and it's kind of fascinating to think about it in light of your question, is on an everyday basis here in the United States, Democrats are holding open the door for Republicans, and Republicans are saying please and thank you to Democrats because we have some common humanity. And I think that's the part of the paying it forward piece is when if you were to if you're in the drive-through and you pay for somebody's food or drink behind you, you have no idea who they voted for. Not a clue. I mean, you might if you saw a bumper sticker or something, but for the most part, if they're behind you, you probably have no idea. You didn't see anything. You might make a zillion assumptions based on the car they're driving, but do you really do that? Do you go, well, you know what? I was going to pay for this person's food, but I see they're driving this car, so I'm not going to do that. Like that's not the essence of why you pay it forward. So I think that for at least for me, and the way I see this is, it's about identifying, kind of getting back to being human beings, being good human beings with each other, finding the common ground, the common humanity that we all have. And understanding that so much of that is really based in we all want very much the same things. Might have different ideas of how we get there, but we all very much want the same things. I'm not talking about the fringes, which the fringes are a very small part of this country. It's more of kind of the bulk of who's here. And I think that's where the paying it forward piece is really the most grounded.
So it's all like life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, those kinds of same things.
Safety, security, a good education for your children. Like, there's a variety of things I think that everybody probably wants. How we get there, again, going to have different ideas of what the solutions are to get there. But there are some pretty basic things I think that everybody wants here.
Yes.
I love that, Howard. Can I just add to that? Yeah, I love everything you said. And, you know, with accessibility, I'm just trying to unite people. I'm not trying to figure out where the differences are. It certainly can be very political, but at the end of the day, people with disabilities cross the political spectrum. And the Americans with Disabilities Act was passed by George W. Bush in 1990, and then I think 1992 it was updated. And it should be a nonpartisan issue altogether. So I'm with you. Let's unite on the parts that we can unite, and let's leave the differences to other topics, of which there are plenty.
I totally agree. Same thing with the people that we work with. I don't know which party. I don't ask it. Sometimes it comes up, but you know, I know there's some on either side, but you know what? You're right. It's just doing the right thing.
I am going to veer because we could go into a politics rabbit hole, but let's not. Let's look at it from the other side. What about when someone pays it forward to you? What sorts of things would be the most meaningful? And I asked it backwards, but you know, we all probably receive, well, at least I hope so, because you're all good people, receiving good things happening to you. But let's say someone wants to do better. What do you consider a meaningful act of kindness to receive? So Tisha?
Gosh, there's so many different things and things that people have done for me. Like helping watch the kids, you know, when I was first starting over, helping watch our puppy now that we adopted one during COVID. And so, you know, there's just so many different ways that you can do that. But, you know, I had actually given most of my furniture to one of the single moms when she got her first place. And the couch that I had for my parents' house didn't work out like we had hoped. So some of my friends went ahead and bought us a couch. I was not expecting it. We were going to just figure it out. And I was just blown away. But there's just little acts that people do. And just even the support with this whole community that we're doing, the people that are volunteering at our store. I'm blown away by the support and the love we're getting with this nonprofit. And I'm just so grateful, and it makes me want to pay it forward more. I love the whole concept. I love the idea, and I'm just really thankful.
I love that you basically created the organization of support that you needed.
Yeah.
And you're able to do that. And that's really, I think, the essence of everything. You know, what did you survive, and how can you help based on your experience is just one element of it, but I think an important one.
Yeah.
So Joe, you're always giving and so good to other people, but what can people do for you that makes you feel good?
Oh, wow. I find that very difficult when people want to give me things. It's the only place that I feel comfortable with it to even ask for things is give to the foundation. If anybody gives to the GAAD Foundation, that's it. I mean, that's my life's work. It's going to be until I die, and at least the way things are looking now, this movement is going to survive me. And I would love it too. I don't really care about legacy so much, but I do care about the mission. And so the only thing I would feel comfortable about accepting would be donations. And so when I do speaking gigs and they offer like an honorarium or to pay or whatever, I'm like, just give it to the foundation. And then that makes me very happy.
So people helping you build something that's greater than you.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
so perfectly said, actually.
Yeah, you put it into words I wouldn't have thought of.
So Howard, you get to follow that.
Yeah, I would say probably I think one of the greatest things to receive is a larger platform to continue to do the work. I think that really, like, if it's genuinely coming from the right place, then having that opportunity to then scale it up, you know, do it on a regular basis with more resources or more partners or whatever, you know, whatever it may be. And I'm not speaking about me. I'm just kind of speaking in the generalist terms of like, I would think that's probably the best thing to receive. I think the other thing I would say too is I think it's that getting the feedback down the road that something that you did had an impact. That it helped. I think from especially what I'm hearing from what Joe and Tisha are involved with, it's about changing people's life trajectory, and to be able to find out, it could be a year, it could be 5, 10, 25 years down the road, that someone's trajectory changed for the better. And there's no way to know that right at the time. You hope the good intentions that that the efforts are leading in the right direction. But to find that out down the road, like that's the greatest thing to receive. Like, oh, wow, this actually worked. Okay, good. Like, yeah, we should keep doing this. So I think that to me, that's the ultimate reward in this is knowing that it's working, and that's the motivation to get up and do it again.
So do you have a good example of someone reaching out to you that you've helped?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. So and Joe and I, we haven't crossed paths, but we probably should have, because I've spent the last 10 years working specifically in sports for people with disabilities. So I've spent a lot of time in the disability community on both sports for people with physical disabilities and sports for people with cognitive intellectual disabilities. It's been amazing to be a part of those communities. Several years ago, I put together a small event to do a soccer clinic for people with disabilities. And partnered with the LA Galaxy here in town. They were an amazing partner for that. And as part of that, we introduced a sport called power soccer that has a small following, but it is a sport specifically for power wheelchair users, one of the only sports for power wheelchair users. And we did a little demonstration with a local team here. And one of the LA Galaxy players was at this clinic, and they were able to convince him to get into a power wheelchair and play power soccer. And it was great experience, and certainly a great social media moment and all of that stuff on the day. And it was awesome. Well, I didn't find out for I think another about 4 or 5 years later, I found out that LA Galaxy player was so taken with his involvement in that he became a regular supporter of that power soccer team, got more involved with them, started helping in a variety of ways, whether it was financial, marketing, promotions, appearances, a variety of things. But just that opportunity to create an event where he got to touch and feel what was actually going on and put himself in another person's shoes, literally, change the trajectory for that program by having access to somebody at a higher level. That wasn't the intent. That's not why we did it. I wasn't planning. I wouldn't plan for any of that to happen. It happened, and it turned out to be really beneficial for all involved. So that's the kind of stuff, like I say, when you find out later, like, wow, actually that really worked better than I even thought it would. Like, that's a great moment to know, okay, I guess this is worth, continuing to go down the path.
That's amazing. Can I add something?
Oh, no, please. I was just going to say that, wow, you can't even imagine. You can't plan these things because things that'll happen beyond your imagination. Yes, please, Joe.
Yeah, so it's funny, Howard. That's amazing, and there's so much great work with the Special Olympics. But what's interesting is that in tennis, in the tennis world, now we're talking about diversity and inclusion a lot, except that people with disabilities are often excluded. And I don't even remember what the brouhaha was over, but there is wheelchair tennis. It's finally getting that you can kind of see it on some of these Grand Slam events. But there was one case where they were talking, I don't remember what the dust up was, but they were talking, I think it was that they said who has the most Grand Slams on this particular tournament, and they were saying you completely forgot Serena. There was a big brouhaha, and at the very same tournament, there was Dylan Alcott, who beat everybody in terms of winning wheelchair Grand Slams. And not only did nobody say anything about that, but at the wheelchair Olympics, in order to make room for one of the matches, they made them play like on the practice courts with absolutely no audience watching them and really disrespected them and this great champion. So you just kind of reminded me about that. I mean, I love your story. It's fantastic. And I'd love to see more people like paying attention to some of these great people with disabilities just doing this amazing work. There's also this race car driver who was, I don't remember his name right now, but he was a Formula One driver, Zanardi. And he had an accident. I remember seeing it on TV, and his legs were basically like sliced off. And he came back on Letterman a few years later and just became a Paralympian. And he was so happy and excited, and it surprised so many people because he just went on with his life and then did the exact same thing he did before. Typical athlete, boom, goes and just continues in sports. Sorry, I went a little long there.
It's fine. So we need to see more of the good examples, because that's where the change is going to come. And it goes back to what Howard was saying before. When you get opportunities to amplify the message, more people can learn, more people can contribute, and that elevates. Do you, Joe, have an anecdote of your own to share of something that, I mean, you probably like pick a card, any card, but what is a good story from the work that you've done that's come back to you?
Oh my gosh. It happens a lot, but I can't think of one right now that I can kind of share publicly, but it definitely happens a lot, where there's just people that have been affected by this. Sometimes I'll give speeches, and then you walk out and you'll have a mom coming up to you and crying, and then they get involved in the event, and they're doing these great things for the event, for years and years later. It honestly happens pretty often, just because it's so massive. I mean, 30 to 40% of all Fortune 500 companies have done events. So like, I find out about it years later. Amazon took it from a day, and they started to do Global Accessibility Awareness Month, and they do every single day events internally. And I found out like 5 years later. So, yeah, it happens all the time.
You never know the impact, so you just got to keep on going, right? And so, Tisha, do you have a nice story for us?
I do. Well, so like you guys know, I'm a little bit newer, but I feel like what I was saying, the community has been so supportive. Like, we have these expert speakers that speak to the moms, and a lot of them will offer the services. And I'm watching these women bloom between that and what we're offering with everything else with the nonprofit and real estate. But the one thing that really came to mind when you said this was last year we did a fundraiser, an online fundraiser, because all of my board members are like, you need to get testimonials. And I'm like, ugh, I don't want to ask anyone, I don't like asking for anything. But I got a couple of the moms to get on there. I'm like, would you like to speak at this fundraiser and just share like how we've helped? And they did. I didn't ask, I didn't know until they got on there, and I listened to the stories. I was a sobbing mess because I didn't realize, I knew we impacted them, but I didn't know how much. And it was just beautiful. And I was so thankful to be a part of that. And we're just taking it and continuing it and helping everyone grow.
So what for you is phase next?
For this? Well,
yes.
So I want to get everything up and running with the housing, and we're going to go across the country. So to every major city, I'm getting calls from across the country now, and I can't wait to take this on a bigger scale.
Well,
yes,
it definitely is something that's needed. And I don't even want to call it niche, because it isn't, but it's that, because I was raised by a single mother, so I get it.
And the thing is, it's as I'm getting more into the space though, and getting more involved and into the communities and talking to politicians, I'm like, I never thought I was going to do this, but I might get into politics, because I recognize that it's not just single moms. Our system is truly broken in many ways. So I feel like I could affect more change after doing this and taking things to the next level and growing across the country and seeing what's going on. So that's really my long-term thing.
Well, good. You got to set those big goals, because, if you don't know what you're reaching for, you're never going to get there. And just like with everything else, paying it forward, it should. I don't like using that word, but every now and then it sneaks in there. when you're thinking about that perfect life, it is not just about career. It is not just about family. It's what mark will you lead? What can you do? What do you have to offer? And how does that fit in to that when you think about your ideal life, your Goaltopia? So we're all whole people. So life works best when everything is meshed together and everything is moving forward. And this has been mentioned a couple times about elevating and getting better known for the work that you're doing. I would love it if any or all of you had something to share about what are some good ways for those who are paying it forward or giving back on a bigger scale. How do you let people know what are some things that work? And everything, trial and error, etc. But if you've got an example or two of things that have made really good impact and helping you make impact, that would be awesome. Tisha.
And I'm like, I'll always ask. But for me, I seem to be, a lot of people are approaching me about how to start nonprofits. I'm going to use that as an example because that's my wheelhouse here. But so I go back to my Babson education, which, the other Howard that we talked about before was on here, right? So, I grew up with my parents were entrepreneurs and they always taught me to give back. And, we've had our ups and downs and things, but Babson, that education with my college education was learning how to do a business plan and putting it more into business perspective. So when people are approaching me either to start their own small businesses or even for a nonprofit, I first give them the tools. Like I literally got a book off of Amazon, like how to start the nonprofit. And I followed the steps because I couldn't afford to pay anyone to do it, but I knew what I needed to do and I'd done my research. But a business plan helps put all those steps in the proper place. You know what I mean? So there's free templates out there. So I'll start with that. And then I'm always, just offered to be guidance, but to talk to other people doing it and get advice and grow.
You have to get the education, go out there and see what's out there and what you don't know so you can learn what that is to make better impact. I love Jennifer put, in some cases, it's more like trial and terror rather than trial and error. Yes. But if you don't try, you don't get where you need to go. So Joe, what recommendations do you have for, not everybody can write a blog post and create an international movement.
Maybe they can.
Or maybe they can.
I didn't think I could. I didn't think this would happen. And I really learned that if you have a vision for something that affects a lot of people and you hook into the community, you really can have a major impact. And this wouldn't have worked. I think there were a couple of factors. One was I really helped build the tech ecosystem in LA. So I had an audience to kind of prime the pump and I understood community. But my co-founder, much more importantly, he had a global community. He's blind, but he's an advocate. He was living in Canada and moved now to the Bay Area, works for LinkedIn now. He knew everybody. And I really put a blueprint in that blog post. So if you want to check out that blog post, that's a blueprint that literally worked. It's like the only writing, I don't know, you're a writer, Deb. And as a coder, like I would look at code that I wrote or anything I wrote 3 months, 6 months ago. And I'm like, who wrote that crap, And this is the one thing that it took me years and years and years. I went back on that blog post and I'm like, hey, it kind of holds up. It's the only thing I've written that I feel good about. And in that blueprint, it said, reach out to community people. There's lots of meetups, anything related to development and design, and propose that they run an event for this day. And the other thing was reach out to journalists. And other people did most of that work. And that's the reason that it just blew up. So give it a shot. What do you have to lose?
Absolutely nothing. And if you send me your link to your original post, I will definitely put it in the recap. And you can go to thedebmethod.com/blog and get the recap and the links that are mentioned in this episode. So yes, please send that to me. I'll also link to the interview I just did on you so people can learn more about your backstory as well. So what advice do you have, Howard, for getting where you need to go as a change maker?
I think it's one very, very big consistent theme, and it's curiosity. It is, you need to get in and start asking questions, because if you're going to assume what it is that people need, you're probably going to end up making a lot of mistakes, which is okay. Again, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. That's a good thing. But don't make a ton of assumptions about all the things that you should be doing. Go in and start asking questions. It is, sometimes it's not as simple as it looks on the outside. So that's the biggest thing. And you don't ever stop asking questions. It is a continual process, because the needs change, the circumstances change, the resources change, like everything changes. You have to continue to just be curious and be good in the trial and error, in the ability to iterate, big in the tech space, right? You're going to, you want to build it and break it so you can rebuild it again. It's kind of that similar ethos here. Like, continue to do, if you find something that's working, great. And if it's not working, figure out why and ask the questions, and just continue to go down that path. I'm not somebody who came from the nonprofit world. I came from the business world, and I've met a lot of people who have kind of taken that same path, and they have all very much said the same thing. Much harder to start a nonprofit organization than to start a business. I consistently hear that theme from people with a lot of business background, very smart people, say way harder to start a nonprofit, much harder than I ever expected, right? Because you think, oh, I'm just here to do some good in the world, right? And I think the other part of that is, maybe you don't even need to start a nonprofit organization to do the good in the world you want to do. So that's the other thing. That's why I say you got to ask questions. The answer isn't always, we should start a nonprofit organization. It's a consistent theme I hear a lot from being in the sports space from professional athletes, right? They all say, oh, I should start a nonprofit organization. And a lot of times the answer is, no, actually you shouldn't. There's plenty of them out there. In fact, there's way more than we need. There's an enormous amount of redundancy in the nonprofit sector. So we don't need more nonprofits. We need more efficient nonprofits. And maybe people with really strong platforms need to align themselves with the nonprofits who are already doing the work. And that would be a more efficient way to make change happen than to start another nonprofit organization. So that's why I say, so many things, you have to go in and ask the questions and be curious, rather than just assume I'm going to go solve all the world's problems. Like, if it was that easy, we'd all be doing it and all the problems would be solved.
That is so true. That was really, if you don't mind, sorry, I'm just going to be like, yep, you nailed it. Because that's the thing. When I was going through what I was going through, and like on food stamps and barely making ends meet, I was in the survival mode trying to find things, but there were a lot of places to go. But you're right. It's very scattered. And so when I talk to people, this is why we're trying to collaborate with a lot of nonprofits, so we can see who's doing what and where we can make a difference and how maybe we can put some together. That's totally, I'm so all about that. You're right.
That's it. We way more collaboration in the nonprofit space. I'm a huge advocate for that. In fact, I felt very lucky. Just a couple of years ago, I got a chance to be a part of a nonprofit merger, right? 2 nonprofits decided to merge into one because they realized, you know what? We'd be much stronger and much more beneficial to the community we're serving if we just became one really good organization than 2 similar but kind of complementary organizations. Not easy, kind of difficult to glue 2 nonprofits together, especially 2 that had been around for 50 plus years, but we figured it out. And now there's one really strong organization in the space doing really good work. So sometimes the consolidation can be the best thing for the space.
And do you want to give a shout out to this super nonprofit?
Sure. Yeah, it's an organization called Move United. And it was the merger of Adaptive Sports USA and Disabled Sports USA, 2 longtime organizations in the adaptive sports space serving people with physical disabilities. And it made a lot of sense for the 2 of them to merge. I was on the board of one of them and was part of the gluing together of these 2 groups. And yeah, it's an amazing organization now doing really impactful work.
Wow. And you got to be a part of that.
Yeah, really interesting to be behind the scenes and how you do that. I feel very lucky to have that experience now.
That's
beautiful. I agree with what you did 100%. And, you know, it took us a decade. Last year is when we finally created the GAAD Foundation, and it was pretty much necessary because one day we're not going to be around, and we needed a steward to make sure that it stuck to its mission and purpose, because so many people want to co-opt the mission and always have other ideas of what you should be doing. But if I could have avoided it, it definitely would have. And you're 100% right. It's something that if you can align with another mission, there's usually so many of them. Go find somebody else doing something similar and help them.
I feel like in business, there's so much competition where there should be cooperation. And what you're all talking about, it seems like, you know, let's solve the world's problems. You know, similar companies find similar companies, elevate each other, we all win. Right? We just
Absolutely.
discovered the solution. We just discovered how to make the world a better place. And on that note, what I'd love to do next is I would love for each of you to gift a goal to our audience, whether they're watching or listening. What is something that they can do today, tonight, tomorrow to pay it forward, to do more in the realm of giving back? Do you want to start us off, Howard?
Sure. So I'll kind of go back to probably the very beginnings of why I got into the space that I'm in with this intersection of sport and social impact. For me, one of the most fascinating aspects about this space is we have people who have started organizations, programs, all kinds of initiatives because they had a passion for a particular activity that was a part of who they were. They're surfers or snowboarders or tennis players or marathoners or whatever. Like it's a part of their identity. That community, that sport, that activity is part of who they are. And they took that and they connected it to something that they cared about. Cancer research, homelessness, education and literacy, peace and reconciliation, like you name it. And there was no guidebook that said, here's how you take soccer and use it to address homelessness. It was just somebody who said, I'm going to take those two things and figure this out. And that's for me, the most amazing part of this space is it's just all these people with all this passion and connectivity to something that's really important to them and finding a way to glue them together. So that's, for me, the biggest advice to anybody out there is what's the thing that's something that you are so connected to, that's so much a part of your identity? Music, sports, art, culture, what is it? Food, what's your thing? What's a part of who you are? And what do you care about in the world? What's something that impacts your life or impacts you and your family or you see in the world needs to be addressed? How can you put those things together? Because if you can figure out what that intersection is, you're probably going to want to get up every day and put some time and effort into it.
That's awesome. I love how you're like the usage of the word glue in a lot of your statements. That's really it. It's what can you merge, not just fit together, but glue to make that impact. And people, I'm using the should word again. People need to be doing things that they love, at least part, if not all the time. That's why I do what I do. I believe everybody deserves to be happy. And finding that drive, maybe you like your job, but then find something you love on the side that makes you a better person and the world a better place, and let those elevate each other.
So, Cal, I'll add one thing to that because you just tipped to a great thing. If you do love your dog and you do care about people and human beings in the world, go find out if your dog's qualified or is able to train to be a service dog and go visit people in the hospital. So I did that for 10 years with my dog at UCLA Medical Center. It was one of the most amazing things I ever did. So, and it was great because my dog loved people and loved attention. So it worked out great for him. But there's one right there. If you love dogs and you want to go help, there's a great thing you can do. Go take your dog to visit people in the hospital.
That's such a good idea. It kind of makes me want to have a dog just to train my dog so I could bring my dog in to make people happy. That's good. I like it. Tisha?
Well, I'm going to carry off on that idea, Howard. I love it because I know when my grandmother was in and sort of like a nursing home type of situation years ago, the administrator had come in, a new administrator, and she was allowed animals. So they had cats and birds and dogs. It was like the lights turned on in the facility. It was beautiful. It was such great therapy. And so I feel like, that would be, check with your local nursing home or like retirement facility. Maybe you could take your animals there too. I love that idea. So my gift to give back, my suggestion would be give back to your community. Like what you were saying, find something you're passionate about. What do you love? I feel like it's important to live each day to its fullest. Do what you love daily, like you said, Deb. I just think it's so vital to just your internal happiness. And that, I think, exudes, you know what I mean? And that's what carries and pays it forward too. People feel that passion and energy, but get involved with your local community. Look up nonprofits. You may think that they may not need a hand, but a lot of these places that I'm talking to, like the pantries and things, are saying, we get so much help at Thanksgiving and Christmas, but then it's like dead the rest of the year. They need help all the time. Even our place could use it. People are like, oh, do you need help? I'm like, yeah, we always need volunteers. They think that we're good and we're busy. And I'm like, all these nonprofits, any organization can always use more help. Even if it's an hour or 2 hours a week, if you've got it, get involved. It'll help you feel good. And that is a great way to pay it forward, I think, in my opinion.
And you don't know. And if you don't know, ask your friends. Do you volunteer? Where do you volunteer? Where can we volunteer together? Or put up a post looking for great community opportunities, because if you don't ask, you're not going to get the answers. So, Joe, what goal would you like to gift?
There's so many, and riffing off of both Tisha and Howard. Let me just start with this. What I noticed is very commonly there's a lot of folks that hold on to negativity, and they love to criticize what other people are doing and focus on that criticism and the negativity. And that's a total waste of energy, because if you're passionate about something and you really know better than the other people that are doing things, why not go out and start to do something? So for example, if you're talking about politics, you can become a politician, right? And do it the right way. Don't try and take money. Don't try and make sure that you're particularly focusing on the issue that you care about. And the place that you can really start is join your local chamber of commerce. And I say that because you'll learn how the system works. Try and get super involved there. Then you can be in maybe the executive committee, become the chairperson for a year or something like that. But you will learn, you will get to meet folks, you'll meet lobbyists as well. And that's really an important piece of this as well, because lobbyists speak for certain organizations. Some of them might be doing it for some reasons you may not like, and some of them are doing it for good reasons. But you got to learn the system. And once you learn the system, then you can run for office. So that's one great way. And then another, obviously, is volunteering. And I had a third one, but I kind of lost that. So I'll end there.
Well, if you remember what it is, chime back in. And I think Tisha's going to join our local chamber if she hasn't already.
Oh, I already did, girlfriend. We did the ribbon cutting with them when we opened our store.
So there you go. So you've already taken step one.
Yeah, no, it's important. I agree. You've got to get involved with your community if you want to make a difference, especially if you're in business or even as a nonprofit. But even as somebody in the community, you want to be aware of what's going on in the community and get involved. Have a voice. Everyone has a voice. I always say, together we rise. Together we can make more of an impact, So, but this has been a great conversation. I'm so thrilled to have met all of you.
Well, and this is my joy. I get to bring people together who I believe, well, you get to get introduced to each other and to everybody's communities. And that's another way that we all benefit, is because you don't know. I love it if I'm scrolling through my feed and I see two previous guests and one is on the other's podcast or whatever. So I love making these connections as well, because you never know. And like I said before, I've been in tech circles with both Joe and Howard and in LA, and just stunned that you've never met before, but now you have. You're welcome. And Tisha, who's just north in the valley, making her way to make the world a better place. So tell me, friends, where can people learn more about you and connect with you? Howard?
Thanks, Deb. I would say you can find me probably most prominently. I'm on Twitter at Sports and Change, and then you can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm not on Facebook very much. Little bit on Instagram. So for me, it's probably LinkedIn and Twitter more than anything else. I think I still have a Pinterest page. Yeah, actually, I do have a Pinterest page with some really cool stuff around sport and social impact that I probably haven't nurtured it as much lately. But I remember I used to put a lot of time into that. So I think there's still some good stuff there as well. But yeah, you'll find me more often than not on LinkedIn and Twitter. And then with CommonAlly, we're kind of in a little bit of a quiet period. We're about to hopefully raise some capital. But you'll be able to find us on Instagram pretty heavily once we get rolling. That'll be our platform of choice. And then TikTok, because that's where the young people are and that's where we need to be. So we're not quite there yet, but you will find CommonAlly on both Instagram and TikTok coming to a social media platform near you.
Awesome. And again, go to thedebmethod.com/blog to get the recap and the links and to connect with my awesome friends. And Joe, where can people find you?
Well, first I want to say that I've connected while we were talking with both Howard at the social media that you mentioned and Tisha as well on because I saw that Deb was following you and tagged you. So you can even just follow what Deb did on Twitter and find everybody. In terms of social media, I'm at Joe Devon at any social media. But if it's at Joe Devon, then you'll see me there. At DWS LA is my company. And then the GAAD one is a little bit difficult because we misspelled it when we first created the social media. So I think it's GBLALY, something like that. But if you follow me at Joe Devon, you'll see plenty of links there. So there's that. And then the GAAD Foundation, GAAD.Foundation. And that's me.
Fantastic. And Tisha, where can people find you?
I had that weird name thing too with the Facebook as I was trying to make a separate page for She Is Hope. Yeah, I get that. Anyway, one of my volunteers got us on TikTok. So you're going to find us there just starting. But on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook, it's at She Is Hope LA and at She Is Hope Realty. Realty helps support the nonprofit as well. And then also under my name, Tisha Janigian. So, and on our websites and YouTube. And we're just doing... But it's under the She Is Hope LA and She Is Hope Realty.
Awesome. And I am at the Deb Method everywhere. And you can learn more about me and what I do at thedebmethod.com/goals. And wow, what an amazing conversation. I'm just sitting here being so proud of myself for putting you all together. What final thought would you like to leave people with? Tisha?
I say, my thing that I love to say is just go for it. Just go for it. Find something that you're passionate about, son. Find something that you love and go for it. Live each day to its fullest.
This is how I end the show, but I will let you have that statement as well, because what are you sitting around for, right? Go for it. And so what about you, Howard? What final thought do you want to leave us with?
I'm going to leave you with a final word. Vote.
Alrighty then. Good one. I like it. And Joe, what final word or words do you have for us?
Pay it forward.
Okay, that was just such a softball, and I should have seen it coming, and it just went whoosh. Thank you again so much, Joe, Howard, and Tisha, for joining me today. And if you're watching or listening, thank you for choosing yourself, choosing your goals, and choosing to learn more about what you can do to make your life and the world around you a better place. It's all in your hands. Your life, your career, your community. So go on out there and go for it. Remember, you can do it. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.